Let's look for there. And let's connect. And then make sure the DC is running in the background. This is very important that you make sure you do that also, because you won't be able to connect to the domain if the DC is not in the background. This is always running in the production environment, and as are the servers that we need. So now that we've prepared everything, we've given permissions to SQL Server, we're ready now to discuss what log shipping is. So let me go here and discuss it a little more detail. Okay, so here we go. So what is log shipping? So before we can even address what is log shipping, let's just talk about the definition of HA solutions, or high availability. So I'm going to be calling it HA for now. The principal goal of HA solutions is to minimize the impact of downtime and provide redundancies for data throughout the enterprise. And what I mean by that is, obviously in a production environment, you're not only going to just have one server or one system, you're going to have multiple databases, or you should have multiple databases and multiple systems. So in case of failure, in one case, if a system goes down or a database goes down, we can actually access another redundant data in a different location quickly. That's the whole point of high availability. Time becomes a factor, obviously, here when we're talking about HA solutions. We can certainly have, for example, backups of databases, as you should, and you should never give that practice up. Let me repeat that, because one of these students asked me, can we give up backing up databases in the process of restoring databases in the entire process if we have these HA solutions? And the answer is emphatically no. We always must have backups, and you must always test them. That is a given. Never rely even on HA solutions and give up that practice. It could cost you your job. You must have you must do backups, you must practice backups and practice restores regardless of the HA solutions. And there's reasons for that also, but we won't get into that right now, but always keep that in mind. So the principle, again, is the high availability, and that is downtime. So obviously, as I mentioned now, if you had a system, for example, and the database crashed, obviously if you have a backup, you can restore it. So why do you need HA solutions if you have backups? Well, the answer obviously becomes a question of time. Sure, I have backups, but suppose that backup and restore process takes 4 or 5 hours. Am I going to be able to rely on the business and the business profitability and business rules and regulations that it be done in a timely fashion? Then obviously that's going to violate that, because I need to do it a lot faster than 3 or 4 hours. So that's where redundancy becomes in play, and highest availability solutions. And that is, we've got a copy of a database somewhere else in a different location, where if the primary server goes down, I can rely on the secondary database to come back up fairly quickly, and certainly quicker than 4 or 5 hours. So that's what HA solutions means. You have redundant databases throughout your system. In case of one failure, we can just switch, if you will, to the other failure. So one of the solutions of HA that we're going to be talking about in detail here is called log shipping. Now, log shipping has been with SQL for a relatively long time, and it's become stable, so we can use it here. So let's talk about what is SQL Server log shipping. SQL Server log shipping is one of the HA solutions which involves 2 or more server instances. Now, here's a couple of terminologies that we need to understand. The source server is called the primary server. So now you'll hear me say primary server. And then the destination is called the secondary server, or servers, because you can have multiple secondary servers. Log shipping involves, so this is what log shipping is. Log shipping involves the transferring of transactional logs files from the primary server to the secondary server. And log shipping is a basic level SQL high availability technology that's part of the SQL. And there are 3 jobs that are created that automates this log shipping. So that's a great benefit there, that we don't have to do it manually. SQL log shipping is a automated process by these 3 jobs, and we'll be going over it in a second. So what are the advantages of having log shipping? Well, log shipping is primarily used for disaster recovery solution. As I just mentioned, if you do have a disaster on the primary server, then you can manually fail over the primary to the secondary and have the secondary suddenly in play. So that's a great one. It's reliable and it's tested. As I said, it's been used for many years, so it's a very reliable way of giving a HA solution. And this is a great thing. It's easy to set up and maintain. So I'll show you how to do that in a second, and you'll see how easy it is. It's relative. Obviously, you can do it through T-SQL, but using the GUI, it's very easy. Log shipping can be combined with other disaster recovery options, such as always-on availability groups, database mirrorings, replication, and these are the other HA solutions, and you can use them in combination. It's low cost in terms of human resources and physical resources, so that's another benefit also. It doesn't require that much once you've set it up. So what are some of the disadvantages then? Well, need to manage all the database separately. So if you need to log ship, let's say 10 or 15 databases, then you're going to have to set up log shipping for each database separately. So that can be a little cumbersome. There isn't a possibility of automatic failover as in database mirroring. So if you need to manually fail the primary server to the secondary server, it has to be done by you manually. So that can be a little cumbersome, but again, it's not that difficult if you practice it. And then the secondary databases isn't fully readable when the restore process. One of the disadvantages is that obviously you have two choices in a second, which I'll show you, is that the secondary database on the other receiving sides of the transaction logs is basically not in a restoring mode, so people can't access it to some degree. Again, it depends on the mode that we put, and I'll show you that in a second. A couple of terms and definitions we need to go over. As I mentioned, we talk about the primary server. This is the source SQL production server where you want to set up log shipping against the database. The secondary server is the destination where you want to keep what's called a warm standby copy of your primary databases. Now, obviously, there's the third server called a monitor server, and usually this is optional. And basically, it does this. It basically tracks all the details of log shipping, such as when it was backed up, and if there's any failures, and the copy and restore of the backup files, and the information about failure and alerts. And this is optional. We're not going to be doing this. Most companies don't do this, as we have other means of discovering alerts and so on. Some of the prerequisites before we even get into setting up log shipping is that the primary server should be in full recovery mode or bulk mode. It cannot be in simple mode because of the transactional logs that we need. So we'll go over that in a second, and I'll execute this again. The operating modes, as I said, there's two. When we get into setting up log shipping, there are going to be two modes, as I said. One is going to be the standby mode, and one is going to be the restore mode. Now, when you have it in standby mode, the database is available for querying and users can access it, but it's only in read-only mode. So you can only do select statement against that, and that's what we'll be doing for our demonstration purposes. If you have it on restore mode, the database is not accessible, and it'll just say on the destination server, destination database, restoring. So these are the steps that we're going to take to create log shipping. We're going to create a domain user account for log shipping. We've done that. We're going to create an SQL login for log shipping and give it sysadmin permissions. We've done that. We're going to create a service account for SQL Server and SQL Agent. Now, obviously, you would use a separate account in a production environment, but we're going to be using the SQLA, which we've already done. And then these is the important things. We're going to create a network share folder for the backups on the primary with the permissions for the SQL Agent. And we're going to do another share folder on the destination server, and that should have read and write permissions. We're going to make sure that the primary database is in recovery mode, as I said, in full recovery mode. And then what we're going to do is, this is the process. We take a full backup of the primary database to the network share. And then once we've done that, the secondary server copies that database and then restores it on the second database with no recovery if that's the option we choose. And then obviously we'll set up this process here and we'll go through this. And again, the system, you must have sysadmin rights to conduct log shipping. And we've done that. And then in the next few videos, obviously this one's just going to be setting up log shippings, but I'm going to show you what to do when the server goes down. And that's the whole purpose of log shipping is, well, you've set it up, but now what? And I'll be doing that in the next video. So this was a little lengthy kind of an explanation in the academic part, but it's essential that we know it. So let's look at it graphically now. Let's look at it. Let me look at the time. That's fine. Let's look at it graphically now as to what log shipping entails. So here it is. And now you'll get a better understanding of what log shipping is. So let me expand that. So log shipping from primary server to secondary server. So what does that mean? So imagine you have a server here called the primary server now in Los Angeles. That's where I am. And then you have another server in New York. So this is the secondary server. Now you can have many servers here. You can have 2 or 3 or 4 or more servers here if you want to log ship this copy of this to this. But for our purposes, we're only showing you one. So here you have 2 servers, the primary server in Los Angeles and then the secondary server in New York. And the whole idea is now to have redundancies in case this fails. So if this fails, or we need to patch it up or use SQL patching here, and we need to take this offline, then what we need to do is basically move all the data from the database that we want to log ship to and dump it here. And this becomes, if you will, live, and then all connections are pointing here. And then we can work on this database for whatever reason, whether it's a corruption or update, while this is being accessed by other users and applications. Then when we're done here, we'll fail back, and this becomes the primary server again. So that's the whole idea of log shipping. So what are the primary steps? The primary steps in log shipping are these. In the primary server in Los Angeles, we take a full database backup in a primary server, and we put it into a network share. In network share that has read permissions. So we take backups of there and dump them here. Then what happens is the secondary server comes to this folder and it copies that backup transaction logs and it dumps it into its own folder that it has here. That's a shared folder. And then the next thing it does is once it's copied it takes the transaction log and it restores it back to the secondary server. This way you have a constant stream. Once you've taken a full database backup and restored it here, you have a constant stream of log shipping of logs coming from here to here through this process, and hence the word log shipping. We're shipping logs from here to here via this process of backing up, copying, and restoring. And this is in a constant state with this. So that's what log shipping does. So let's start looking at it and getting into it. So now that we know the academics here, let's actually start looking at it and creating log shipping and see how it works. So the first thing, as I said, the first thing we want to do before we create log shipping is go to server 1, go to your C drive or computer, C drive. And what I want you to do is I want you to right click, go new, and go folder. And then just call it whatever you want. I mean, we can call it source. And this, I've already done it for ASP, but I'm going to go through the process again and here. And what I want you to do is right click, go to share, specific people. And obviously now this is the owner. So obviously if we want to find people, we want to find A, make sure we're in the proper location, which is the SQL. So let's say we want to find that B that we created. Go check names, double click, go OK. And as you can see, that domain user B has been added to this, this file sharing, and he must have read write. So just go make sure you have a read. So I'll just put read write, that's fine, and go share. As soon as I go share, you'll notice that the share network drive path is given, and that's it. Same thing here. So now this particular folder has access to the domain user that we created right here. Well, let me just look at it, and let's keep this open. I guess maybe we'll need it off now. So obviously this is the domain account that we created called B, and now what I've basically done is I've gone to SQL Server. Server 1. I created a directory called source, and then I gave it permissions to that specific specific user, and in this case B, and I give him read and writes, and that's it. So I'm going to actually delete this because I don't need to do it. I'm already set it up here. We need to do the same thing for server 2. Go to server 2, go to your C drive, computer, C drive, and again I've got a call D, so I'm going to call it destination, new folder, and call it destination or dest, and then right click, share with specific people, go find, make sure you're in the right location for the SQL, find out what we just created, check names, okay, read write, and share. So now so we've created a folder here for that share also. So I'm going to actually delete this because I don't need it, because I'm going to be using D. But now you get the idea. So now what we've done is basically gone to server 1, created a folder and shared it so that person can access this. Same thing here, can access this. And the other important thing to understand is that SQL agent must have access to this also. So whatever service account you created for SQL agent, and in this case we used A because I was making it easier for you to using one account, but again you'll have separate accounts for this. So make sure whatever account you've given this, in this case, as you can see, it's A right here. So this service account that's going to SQL server account must have access to this folder that we created, and it does. And if I right click, go to properties, and go to, well, if I actually just go properties, and go sharing, you'll notice that this is the path that I need. So this is the network path. Obviously, if you click on here, that's just local, but we need a network share, and that's how you see it. So now that we've created 2 folders, now we're going to start log shipping. So let's begin that also. So what I'm going to do now is, so we can view it, I'm going to double click it, and we can see this. And I'm going to go to server 2. Actually, let me minimize this. I want to go to server 2, double click, so I can view it, and you can have a good understanding of what's going on when we start doing log shipping. So how do you begin log shipping? This is server 1. This is your primary server, and this is your database that you want to log ship. If I go to server here, you'll see I don't have any databases to log ship to. So the first thing I'm going to do, obviously, now you would already have database here, but again, for demonstration purposes, we're going to do it from scratch. Go right click, new database. I'm just going to call it test. And I'm going to go OK.